I wanted to look next at some other oncogene driven lung cancer drugs, TKIs. Um, Firstly, starting with MET exon 14 skipping. I found that there's one drug called tepotinib which seems to be used against this. It was only approved in May 2022 and has a progression-free survival of just under 14 months. I've never personally met anyone with this, so it's quite a seems to be quite a rare condition. But I thought I'd just map this out. It's quite a small population size here, so I didn't think there was any point going earlier than 2022, since we only had 31 cases in 2022 and twice that number, just over twice that number in 2023. So here's the map, the pattern for what it is, for what it's worth, and we actually seem to have an ALK type of pattern here. So you see the pattern that we commonly get with all of the other lung cancers, oncogene driven lung cancers that I've studied, where it shows greater prevalence in the broad southeast compared to the north, and it's actually statistically significant in 2023. But we also have much higher prevalence in the southwest compared to the northeast. So again, doesn't reach, the numbers aren't big enough to reach statistical significance with this small population. Now, I don't know whether that's significant or not. It's an interesting one to watch for the future. Hopefully the population size will grow up in future years to well over 100, and then it'll be interesting to see whether that pattern is still retained. I'll skip over KRAS G12C for the moment. I'll just jump straight over to RET. Again, this is a selpercatinib was prescribed very recently in 2023, so and it seems to be the main drug. It was prescribed a few years before it was approved by NICE as well, a couple of years before, and then I've not bothered going earlier than 2021 because the population size is too small. There's another drug called pralsetinib. Seems to have been tried, but then it wasn't approved, so there's only a handful of cases on that, and that will no doubt decline in future years. But I put it in just for completeness. Looking at this, again, we have the typical, it's higher in the southeast compared to the north. It's very highly statistically significant there, but I don't think, given the population size, you can read too much into that. Maybe you could say this latest year, 2023, yeah, it is. It's been around. Selpercatinib was approved in that year, and it's statistically significantly higher in that region. Doesn't seem to be any difference between the north and the southwest rather than the northeast for that. Caution with that there does seem to be there are quite low numbers here, although I think 2023 is not too bad at all, really. But the early years there's lowish numbers. And then I'll go on to KRAS G12C. Now this is different from all of the other, I've left this to last, but it's different from all of the other drugs in that this is KRAS G12C is actually more commonly found in people with a smoking history. So whereas all the others seem to be more common in people with a non-smoking or light smoking history, this is the opposite. So smokers tend to get this much more than non-smokers. So the question is, will the pattern be the same or different? And it's different. So initially, actually, you do see, it's probably not worth even looking to this year because there's only 18 patients, but 127 in 2022, you do actually see a a similar characteristic pattern to what actually you would get with ALK. Never doesn't quite reach statistical significance, but then it actually completely flips. So this is the only time I've ever seen it with a lung cancer map, where it's more prevalent in the north compared to the south. Now we got 174 patients in taking, what is it, sotorasib in that year, 2023. So it's a fairly good number of patients, and it seems to be more in the north, and it's not statistically significant. Both of those regions are fairly all of those regions are fairly close to one another. But it's interesting also, I did smoking lung cancer rates in England. If you look at images, you do see that there is, with smoking lung cancers, you do tend to get more in the north, I guess because of there were more smoking, there's more of a smoking history in the north than perhaps there is in the south for whatever reason. And that seems to be following that. Whether that's coincidental, I don't know, but this is interestingly the first time I have ever seen this sort of pattern for, I did see this briefly with a few individual drugs for ALK, but and a few individual drugs for EGFR. But when you look at the pattern for all of the drugs combined, this is the first time I've ever seen it for a lung cancer, and this happens to be the only lung cancer that is a smoking lung cancer out of all of the ones that I've studied. So don't know whether maybe that's significant, maybe it isn't, I don't know. So I'll leave it for there for now.